Hi, I'm Julie Baker, COO and co-founder at Ursa Space Systems. We are delighted to be with you this afternoon and tell you a little bit about Ursa Space, as well as some of the work that we've done recently. Our mission at Ursa Space is to reveal global changes from space. And we are a US-based satellite intelligence company. We do our work by bringing all of the different satellite sensors together. The providers provide us with radar data, optical data, other kinds of data as well. We specialize in what is called synthetic aperture radar data. And this is an active sensor that sends out signals from the satellite. They bounce off the Earth back to the antenna. And there's a very rich data set here. Part of the reason that it's so useful is that because it's an active sensor, it can see at night, it can see through clouds, and it is able to detect certain changes in the surface of what is on the Earth. So if you think about the situation of an oil spill, there's a way that we can look at the surface of the water, and with the radar signals that have bounced back, it will show up in the image. And this is what Paul Frey, our product manager, is going to talk about. And I just want to take, before he starts his story, I just want to take a few minutes to thank Adam Simmons for joining forces with Ursa Space in presenting the Sensor Showdown series to you. We really appreciate the community that we have in all of the suppliers and all of the partners in this area, in GeoInt. So at this point, Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Julie. As Julie mentioned, my name is Paul Frey. I am the Senior Product Manager for our Moving Targets division of Ursa. And I'm going to be walking us through the story of the Mauritius oil spill and how Ursa used our SAR and data fusion capabilities to drive insights for first responders on the ground. So just a little background on the story here. The ship, the MV Wakashio, was traveling from Asia to Brazil when we noticed that it had struck a coral reef on July 25th. This is a major shipping route near the coast of Mauritius, but generally most traffic seems to be staying far enough away from the island of Mauritius. Mauritius is known as a major tourist destination. It's tropical climate with beautiful beaches and pristine coastline and some of the most pristine coral reefs there are in the world. It's home to many different species of wildlife and marine life. So when the Wakashio did run into the coral reef, it became a major disaster scenario. So as we move through this story, I just wanted to thank a couple of our partners, Airbus, EGEOS, the European Space Agency, ICEYE, Japan Space Imaging, and SIIS, Black Sky for the optical imagery, and then all of our AIS data, which I'll cover shortly here, was provided by Spire. So let's start with the Wakashio running aground. On July 25th, the Wakashio we noticed that the Wakashio had deviated from the shipping lane severely. And if you look at this image here on the right, this is courtesy of Spire. And for those of you who don't know, Spire is a major, what they do is they collect AIS signals from various vessels on the ground using their satellites. AIS is automated identification system Most vessels that are transiting around the world are broadcasting the AIS that tells you where they are, where they're going, how fast they're going, things like that. And so what we do is we collect all this information and it shows us shipping lanes. So all those lines that you see there are the ships transiting by Mauritius in the major shipping lane. The line in red is the path that the MV Wakashio took. We noticed that it started deviating from the shipping lane at around 11:06:26 UTC. And then based on reports on the ground and speed data on the AIS system, we estimated the moment of impact on the coral reef to be about 4 hours later at 15:46:16 UTC. The European Space Agency Sentinel spacecraft flew over about 4 days later, and we were able to capture an image of the Wakashio aground against the coral reef. And our team initially judged, and the world initially judged the situation to be fairly stable. The vessel had crashed, but so far there had been no oil leakage, and the hardest part was going to be just getting the ship dislodged and cleaning it up from there. Myself included, and my team included, we thought that this operation was pretty much over and wasn't going to be much to report. Turns out on August 6th, 2020, we had suspicions and calls from the ground with people saying that the MV Wakashio had indeed started leaking oil. So we tasked an ISI satellite, ISI as one of our partners flying high-res SAR satellites. We tasked them and were able to see pretty obvious evidence of a oil leak / surface disturbance. When we initially did this, and then the reason I make the distinction here by saying surface disturbance is because the way that the SAR satellites work to detect oil or an oil spill is the deviation of the bounce back that you get, or the backscatter that you would get off of normal water as opposed to water that has a disturbance on the surface, such as caused by an oil spill. And in this image, you can see that those black calmer areas relative to the rest of the water shows signs of a significant surface disturbance present. So we mapped out the pixels that we believed to be the highest part of the surface disturbance, and detected that it was about 3.3 square kilometers of oil of water covered in oil at the time. This kicked off the state of emergency in Mauritius, and cleanup operations had begun, which Ursa began supporting. On August 11th, we tasked another image, and we had noticed that unfortunately a surface disturbance had been spread to about 27 square kilometers in the waters around Mauritius, including down into Blue Bay, which is a pristine beach and popular, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, a wildlife refuge, which is very concerning for the local population. So we had learned then that the ship owner had claimed the amount of fuel on board, and we had suspected about 1,000 metric tons of oil had flown out into the nearby waters. Again, measured it to be about 27 square kilometers on August 11th. Part of the August 11th story is where we start to bring in some of our data fusion techniques. So what we could see here is we can see the vessel itself, the MV Wakashio, still lodged against the coral reef there. And then we can see by interpolating those AIS signals I was talking about previously, we can interpolate the AIS signals to the exact time that the image was taken, and we can essentially see what vessels are also in the shot aiding in the cleanup operation. So we had the Boca Expedition and the FNS Champlain down by the vessel itself. And then we had the Tresta Star, Stanford Hawk, and Boca Summit up by the north, also aiding cleanup operations or reporting on oil seen throughout the water. We attempted to make some closer looks at the different areas where we thought the oil had the potential to spread. Blue Bay, as I mentioned, a popular tourist spot with wildlife refuge. A town a little bit to the north that was home to some aquaculture farms, and then another major tourist destination and wildlife refuge area up in Île aux Cerfs. So on August 11th, again, this shows the potential surface disturbance being spread into the Blue Bay Marine Park with the Wakashio again highlighted there to the right. This is the town of Bambo Veru. Pardon my French, quite literally. And you can see circled in white here is the aquaculture farms that we could tell, or at the time on August 11th, we thought were relatively unscathed so far by the oil, which was good news for locals on the ground. Closer up to Île aux Cerfs, we noticed some very minimal surface disturbance, which led us to believe in reports to many of the responders on the ground that the oil had maybe not spread up this far yet, but also allowed them to prepare, do whatever they had to do in case of it. There was some detections down here, and they were able to send some crews up there to get a look and to get some cleanup efforts happening right away. On August 15th, there was reports from the ground that the Wakashio had broken into, which again had the potential to release even more oil. We tasked another image with another ISI satellite and confirmed that indeed the Wakashio had broken into, with more oil coming out of the bow section. And you can see in the upper right hand subset image here, you can see the division line between the split with the bow to the right and the stern to the left, and then the Boca Expedition boat support to the right. On August 16th, that we had shown that even though the vessel had broken into two, and there was still oil present in this area of Mauritius, that it had most likely dissipated down from 27 to 8.2 square kilometers, either with the help of cleanup operations or had spread further. Again, but this was 3 times less than the measurements taken on August 11th. As part of the cleanup operation, and along with a lot of controversy, it was stated by the Mauritian government that the bow of the MV Wakashio was going to be towed about 13 kilometers out into the open ocean and deliberately sank. To prove that this event actually happened, Ursa took 2 different approaches to verify this information. One was the AIS approach, where we tracked all the vessels actually aiding in the cleanup. In this case, it was the Boca Summit and the Boca Expedition. And by imaging in this area, based on their velocity and their directions, where we had thought approximately they would be sinking the bow. And in this shot, you can see in the beginning on 816, the 2 pieces of the vessel still present on the coral reef. And as the Boca Summit and Boca Expedition continue to move to the southeast, you can see that the Wakashio bow was dragged about 14 kilometers out into the open ocean by the 19th. And these tracks that are being shown here are the actual tracks that these vessels took while they were towing the bow out to sea, based on their AIS data. So Ursa was able to confirm that yes, the bow was brought out and sunk off the coast. So that is what we had been doing with the response to the MV Wakashio oil spill in Mauritius. We had since teamed up with Planet and Vulcan Inc. On behalf of the Allen Coral Atlas to take these detections, these oil spill detections, and map them over some of the world's most detailed maps of the species of coral in the world, to be able to see which species are most in danger, and where all the cleanup work will have to be focused for these pristine coral reefs. So that is all that I have, and happy to take any questions and comments.
Hey, thanks, Paul. I do have a couple that came in, by the way. And I think it's a very interesting story that you told, especially as you noted that the whole ship split in half, and I mean obviously an added factor to the crisis as a whole, right? So this kind of came in here, kind of asking who do you all work with directly to, because it's not just monitoring this stuff just because, right? You all are working with groups out there to get this imagery to people who are working these things or different projects related to crisis action, right? So the question that came in is related to how your crisis monitoring works with Ursa and the different groups that you directly work with. I don't know, Julie or Paul, one of the two.
So,
well, I could
go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say for this example specifically, we had heard about it on the news and on some of our marine traffic news sources that there had been a collision with a coral reef off the coast of Mauritius, and as we kept an eye on it, we were able to make contact with a reporter from Forbes who had a lot of very close ties to Mauritius, and that quickly became our go-to partner for distributing information to the ground and interacting with people in Mauritius. But Julie could speak to other scenarios.
That's a great question, and it's something that we have an internal team who looks for events in the world, and we're always on the lookout for ways to apply our technology and to provide not only information about it, but it does help us gathering ground truth and examples of things for us to improve our responses. So this was something that we initiated in looking at the vessel. The resulting impact of that is that we were connected with a lot of people who are trying to address these kinds of issues for these communities that are surrounded by water and have this disastrous situation. We do have these capabilities that people are starting to reach out to us to monitor areas on a regular basis, and we do provide these services. So it's something that in this particular instance, we took it upon ourselves to do this, but we have other areas of the world have this similar problem. So
understood. I guess maybe that's just maybe that's a potential service, right? I guess another question that is directly related to that same one that just came in was, does Ursa have some type of crisis action feed that people can subscribe to? I guess you kind of answered it right there. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
With our social media pages, we often have examples of the kinds of events that we detect. It's a current event kind of system where we find things that we think need to be looked at with satellite imagery, and that we need to be able to provide information about. Not only, I think we do a lot of different things at Ursa. We have services that use our virtual constellation, and we're always trying to improve our capabilities, and this is one way for us to do that, and also to show people really the value of what satellite data can do.
Oh, absolutely. Just like the oil spill, I don't think people realize how apparent that oil spill really can be seen on SAR imagery in all weather, day, nighttime, etc. Right? Which actually takes us to another question: are there specific SAR sensor parameters that are best to view the oil spills? one of you want to take that one on?
Yeah, I could say that we experimented with a bunch of different, mostly we experimented with the polarization, but we noticed that going with a VV polarization for the images worked best for detecting the surface disturbance. I'll say the trickiest aspect of oil detection and trying to not disseminate false information was trying to measure up the weather patterns with potential oil spills. As you know, calm water can just look like calm water on a normal day. So trickier than the parameters was judging the weather and trying to actually give correct information to people on the ground.
Now, this also relates to somewhat to monitoring oil slicks by vessels traveling through port areas and such, right? So the difference between an oil spill or an oil slick, how long does an oil slick stay in an area? What's your take on that? And I think people are kind of asking this because they're kind of curious to how long could the oil stick around with a big spill like this if cleanup operations were just slow and they didn't have the resources to clean it up right away, leaving it to something like the ocean to take care of it. Maybe that's a stretch too far of a question.
I was gonna say I'm not an environmental cleanup specialist. I do know that as far as we're concerned, the sooner we can get a shot over from a potential spill, the better, because as it starts to dissipate and as the ocean starts to do its thing by spreading it around and moving it to different areas, the harder it becomes to see. So.
Yeah, and here's another one. Just came. How does Ursa confirm the validity of the detected oil spill extents?
For the validity, I'll just say that we're working. We have algorithms that we're consistently trying to improve. That we're working on, trying to take in all the different types of data that we've become so good at fusing together, such as the AIS data for vessels in the area, weather data for wave height and current direction and wind speed and things like that, plus just the surface disturbance pixel thresholding type of algorithms. Gathering all that information together to assign a certain probability to each individual pixel on the ground that says like this is probably a non-natural surface disturbance as opposed to a naturally caused one. For the Mauritius case, we were very liberal in assigning that these pixels were of high probability to be oil, to be a surface disturbance, just to help the people on the ground and to because as far as we were concerned, if we said there's high probability of oil in this location and someone went there and said no there isn't, that's great news. So.
Excellent. Now, this is a tribute to how fast Ursa can acquire radar imagery, but the question here was, what was the turnaround for tasking the satellite and receiving the imagery when you were looking at validating the movement of that piece of the ship?
Let's see. That's a good question.
Because you're monitoring this as a day by day or every other day situation, correct?
We were monitoring pretty much as often as we were able to get spacecraft overhead. So really, taking that out of the equation, we were getting the shot, having it on the ground, processed, distributed to people on the ground. It's definitely sub 24 hours. I want to say it was closer to 12 at some points, though. Once the entire chain was complete.
Oh, that's incredible. That's a fast turnaround for a SAR image. I know when I've ordered them myself, it's sometimes 48, 72 hours just waiting on the provider. So, but to do the analysis right on top of that. So when you acquire the image, how long does it take to run the algorithms and produce the results?
So that part is actually we've gotten to be pretty efficient. We're looking right now under an hour for sure. And as we continue to improve on that and get it more and more accurate, the speed increases as well.
Awesome. Well, that was the last of the questions coming in. I don't have any myself. Julie, Paul, is there anything else you'd like to say on this this great use case of SAR and this well, unfortunate crisis that unfolded last month?
All I would say is it's kind of tagging on to that last question, is that we are constantly working with our partners and our suppliers to decrease the latency in terms of the turnaround time. And some of them have incredible turnaround time that's starting to come, and the additional satellites that are going to be launched this fall and next year just gives us, with every new satellite that our providers launch, it increases our capability of being faster with this turnaround. So it's really an exciting time to be able to offer this kind of service.
Thanks, Julie. And I guess one more came in just on that note alone. Is there a way for I guess this is related to somebody actually from the member of the disaster committee in Mauritius actually asked the question, I suppose, but is there a way for individuals to reach out to you and obtain this data, the raw data, just based off of the monitoring you did, or some of the results from the trends that you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So they can reach us at info@ursaspace.com and send us an email, and we'll be happy to respond.
Perfect. That sounds great. Well, once again, I want to thank you both for coming on, talking about the Mauritius oil spill. I think it's a great story, and the effort that you all took to monitor this and the ongoing thing, and in providing amazing insights, not only on the crisis itself, but an excellent use case on how SAR could be used for crisis monitoring in general. And I look forward to further use cases down the road.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been a pleasure to talk with you about this. Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Julie.